Today's episode is brought to you by the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. Today we're talking The Rise of Skywalker. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, you know him, you love him, he's going to cut me in half with his saber, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
I'm both glad and upset that you're starting with that line.
I knew you would be. It's you know, as far as opening statements go, it's pretty damning.
It's the reason I might be switching to calling this a bad movie.
Well, I don't normally do this, but this is a special situation, so I'm going to read the following 3 lines.
Okay.
As well, as part of my quotable. Wait, do we believe this? It cannot be. The Emperor is dead. Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew. Now, this feels like a time in the screenplay where you should be communicating in full sentences. Right. And yet this is the only time they're patently refusing to do that.
It's one of my biggest notes was when this scene comes up, and my note was, boy, they're in a hurry to get past this, aren't they?
Well, that's what I to be perfectly honest, and, you know, to throw you a bone, I have mixed feelings about this line, because I agree with former guest of the show, Pete the Retailer, who on the Star Wars Minute coverage for this movie, I think quite correctly said, whatever they would have done as an alternative in explaining how Palpatine came back from the dead would have been far worse than this. So at least we're able to move past it quickly. On the other hand, I just don't know how you write this line and then sleep at night.
And take yourself seriously, right?
Yeah, and then wake up in the morning, go into work, look people in the eye, and with a straight face call yourself a professional writer. I feel like the when you submit a draft of a screenplay with this line in, it should come with a resignation letter and a suicide note.
This is the sort of line that you turn in where the director or the producers look at you like, well, what the fuck is this? And you're like, no, that's just a placeholder. I'm going to figure out something better later.
Because it's not dialogue, it's transcribed notes from a writing session.
Yes, exactly.
All that's missing is a guy with a whiteboard saying, there are no bad ideas. Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew.
Oh my god, that's the line. You said it.
Really? Yeah. In that order.
Yeah, I think it's good enough.
Yeah. It's
but
quite
like
something.
You said, I agree with you that the one thing it does do is it just dismisses it quickly. Like, it's done.
Well, the alternative scenario, as Pete the Retailer also said, was that, you know, it would be a good hour of explaining how he came back from the dead.
Yeah, right.
If you don't do this at this point in the movie. And kudos to Oscar Isaac, because his intonation on this line is the audio equivalent of looking into the camera.
Yes.
Somehow, Palpatine returned. That stress on the how tells you everything you know about what he thinks about that line.
Yes. All right, well, if you haven't guessed yet, everyone, we're talking The Rise of Skywalker. This is a 2019 film directed by Tom's favorite human being, J.J. Abrams. Back at the helm.
Yeah, the movie that caused COVID. Which means that in a sense, it's responsible for creating this podcast. So, you know.
True. Some good came of it.
Somehow, this podcast emerged.
Well, this is the kind of bottom of the barrel. Probably, well, I'd have to go back and look at the prequels, but this movie has 51% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Pretty low for a Star Wars movie.
And it famously got laughs at the press screening, which I think is you're in trouble when that happens, because there's a sort of automatic reverence at press screenings. I mean, people are obviously writing down the horrible things they're going to say, but they're not heckling the film.
But when that line came up, I'm sure the sound of furious scribbling was heard throughout the theater. In addition to the laughs.
The laugh track was reserved for all the walkbacks, all the various walkbacks, and how badly they were handled.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a film critic, that's just too tantalizing, isn't it? It's such low hanging fruit. I mean, the putting the mask back together, Luke catching the lightsaber. It's almost like a parody of itself.
Yeah.
In that respect.
Well, I watched this movie a second time. I was less enamored with it.
Yeah, this is the one that I think is the hardest to rewatch, or to want to rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with Force Awakens, I'm just like, I just want to check out a few scenes, see how they hold up.
Mm-hmm.
With this one, just thinking about it, I'm like, oh, this is such a mess. I can't even think of a single scene in the movie. It's such a mess. Like, I can't recall a set piece.
Well, I can recall set pieces, and there are still things I like in this movie. I think this movie's biggest problem is that it's bookended with badness. The front and the end are a real mess. And then there's messy shit in the middle, but generally the second act, I think, is far better than the first or the third act, and better than probably most people would think this movie is in general. There's a lot I like in the second act.
Okay. Again, that's the idea of a second act is hard for me to grasp. That's my stumbling block at this point.
Okay,
so
fine.
I'm gonna take you at face value, and we'll talk about those scenes when we get there.
That's fine.
I cannot predict what you mean by second act.
We'll find out if that's a fair judgment.
Yeah.
Well, this movie had a budget of $275 million.
You said that like somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah,
You used
exactly.
the same intonation that Oscar Isaac did on that line.
It's an opening weekend of $177 million. In the USA, $515.2 million, and worldwide, $1 billion. So, yeah, they're still going to make these movies.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they went from this... This movie didn't kill the series, but it mortally wounded it. Because it pretty much convinced everyone involved that we should stop doing this for a while.
Mm-hmm. But it's not as though Disney Plus isn't coming out with a series every 6 months.
That's what I mean. Yeah, because as this trilogy was kind of fading into the background, The Mandalorian was coming into ascendance, so that guaranteed another, I guess, like 5 to 10 years of Disney Plus Star Wars series.
Sure.
None of which were as good as the Mandalorian. Even The Mandalorian was not as good as it was those first couple of seasons. So
yeah,
we're in a tricky situation now, and they're producing. I guess Andor's the only kind of the only series which has kind of garnered respect from outside.
Andor got a lot of love.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't honestly, trying to kind of characterize the state of Star Wars production is a fool's errand, and I won't continue to do it. But
Well, then
this was definitely a turning point, right? This was a turning point where we put our eggs in a different basket, and
yeah.
we've yet to see if those chickens will hatch.
Yeah, it's interesting, whether or not because of the success of Mandalorian, are you going to start seeing Mandalorian movies?
Well, one is in production. I have to take that with a grain of salt these days because I've been told that about so many projects.
Well, you scoffed at my telling you that Rey is going to be coming back. You don't believe that.
I've seen less evidence of that than Mandalorian and Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know what to think. It's it's time to let the Jedi die, in the words of Luke Skywalker.
How dare you? How dare you be the voice of reason?
Do something else. Do something else set in space. Space is good. Doesn't have to be Star Wars.
Well, when you can have ideas like the dead speak, why would you stop?
I'm not sure what's more absurd, the line or the fact that the opening crawl is now reporting something that happened during the gameplay of Fortnite.
By the way, I believe it was Heather Pedersen.
Mm-hmm.
She had contacted us at one point saying, "Are you saying scrawl or crawl?" And I think I said scrawl several times because I think I was listening to an episode of How Did This Get Made?
Yeah.
Where somebody kept calling it the scrawl, and then that entered my brain clearly.
Well, no, I think she was asking, did you say scroll or scroll? And I said, well, just to complicate it further, I'm saying crawl.
Yeah.
But
I think in the past we've always called it the crawl.
Yeah. To be honest, I think with this content, scroll is a fine synonym. This is as much a scroll as it is a crawl.
Yeah, I'll say.
Written on a toilet wall.
I every time I've watched this movie, and I think I've watched it a total of 3 times now, I see the dead speak exclamation point. The exclamation point is really magic to me. And it always makes me laugh out loud.
Sure. Is it better or worse than war? Exclamation mark. I think that's the only question.
True.
I think it's worse.
I think it's worse, yeah. Yeah, I do.
Because, you can imagine a 1930s serial matinee voiceover going, war!
Yeah, right.
But, the dead speak! Doesn't sound right.
Doesn't sound right or good.
And then we get to our first paragraph, and, well, this is, the second sentence of the first paragraph. And it's all about bringing back a character from the dead with no explanation, and we as an audience just have to accept it.
We just have to take it.
Yeah, we take it on the chin. It's not giving us an option to not accept that it's happened.
Right. Oh, it's all so dumb.
It really is. I mean, all the focus on dead people is alarming because
it sounds desperate, doesn't it?
Well, you're talking about a dead character and a dead actor, and a dead actor who is yet to be a dead character. Because this crawl is pretty much entirely about Leia and the Emperor.
Yes.
One of whom is dead. One of whom the actor is dead and can film no more scenes.
Dead in life.
And the other character is dead in world
yes.
and shouldn't be in the movie.
Right.
And you're putting all your eggs in that basket of death.
In the 2 baskets, right.
In the dual baskets of death. And, as a noted prequel apologist, I couldn't help but notice the use of words like phantom and revenge.
Yes.
I feel like they're trying to name check as many prequel properties as possible, as if that is the basis for Palpatine's return.
Yeah.
It's like he's getting a introduction as a guest on a radio show, and they're just trying to work in as many puns about his resume as possible.
I like the notes that I write about this particular crawl because when you take notes on it,
Yeah.
it sounds like the last raving words of a syphilitic brain. Because I wrote down, the dead speak, voice of Palpatine, Leia checking it out, Rey training, Kylo Ren don't like.
You know what? I think that's preferable to what we actually get. If it was just a series of ellipses with those words in between.
Right.
And, you know, to that point, never has there been less information in an opening crawl in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a pretty, you know, it's a red flag that as we suspected from at the end of The Last Jedi, the story's finished.
Dead. Yeah. Like so many actors and characters.
There is none more story in this franchise because the opening crawl is giving us no information about anything that needs to be updated. So, yeah. It is as cobbled together as your notes suggest, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, then we have a pan down, and Kylo Ren is...
Oh, it's a long pan down.
Killing a lot of people.
My note here was, this takes almost as long as it takes us to get through the spaceship in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Again, treading dangerously on that parody. That's
on
kind
that
of self-parody
comic, yeah,
territory.
right.
when you offer a comparison with Spaceballs, you need to pull back.
It's not as... It's less desirable than you think.
I think that should be... That really... I'm sure they didn't, but anyone writing a Star Wars should immediately put on Spaceballs so they can have in their mind...
What not to do.
What not to do, yeah. I bet that would make for a better Star Wars screenplay, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone who wrote these movies did that.
We've been talking about your famous treatment for quite some time.
That's right.
I never told you...
And only us.
Yes. I never told you that when we did the prequels, that one of the first things I did upon seeing The Phantom Menace, which is odd because it was my favorite of the three, but in my rage of first seeing it, the first thing I did was start rewriting it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
So
impulse,
I have my own
isn't it?
famous treatment. Probably less famous than you're famous, but...
Well, I got one of those for the prequels, too. I think pretty much all of us have figured out a way to do it better than the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder with the sequels, I think, because you can do pretty much whatever you want.
Sure.
And they did.
I was going to say, that would be a good note for them. You could do anything you want. You don't have to bring back Palpatine. Anything.
Yeah. I mean, is it... I was going to say, is this the right time to talk about it? There's no bad time to talk about it, because it's what the movie's essentially about. It's the plot point of the movie. Was it simply because he was a known entity in Star Wars? Was that the entire impetus for bringing him back?
I would think so, yes. Because you're talking about the last movie in a third trilogy. And so the idea, because you already killed the baddie in the last movie, and so the idea of trying to come up with something new, you have to say that there was a puppeteer for all of what you've seen already. And the most logical choice in their minds, obviously, was the person we already know.
The person we already know who has a history of playing coincidences as if they were part of a master plan.
Yeah.
I guess in that sense it fits. It's classic Sheev to come back in and go, "This was my plan all along."
Right.
So maybe he's making... I mean, that should have been the other level of, is Palpatine being honest about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I would have rather have seen the revisionist history of, say, a Darth Maul and his spider legs.
Oh my god. Imagine what it takes to get Mike Sheds to say that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it. Just like, we all think it's Palpatine, and then Kylo Ren arrives on Exegol, and we just see this little click, 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 this little scuttling Darth Maul, and then he's like, okay, so I'm negotiating
not
with
to
a
skip
spider.
at the end, but part of what makes this movie fail when it does fail is, I mean, he's really attached to those hoses and that Christ-like, like it's not a cross, but
well, it might as well be.
Man, he's hammered into that thing. And so you give this great actor no way to move.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally hamstrung by a set of hoses, you're right. Well, I mean, so we begin the movie in media res of a brand new story.
Yes.
And we're straight into Wayfinders, which, as I understand, are literal plot points scattered across both the movie and the galaxy. It's also straight into slow motion fighting, which would not have been my choice of how to begin a movie, because it's sort of announcing your attention to feature the very worst of style and storytelling.
Now, if it was regular speed, is it still terrible for you?
Well, here's my issue, and I think I said this in the ranking episode. The movie is both too slow and too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And this scene encapsulates that, because we are editing rapidly through the action.
Right.
But what we're seeing is all space shoe leather.
Sure.
So instead of cutting the shoe leather, what they're doing is editing rapidly through it.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't make it go any faster. You know, it's like the classic dad run. You know, when you see sort of like dads running and you're like, you're not going any faster by running. It's just a pose you're doing. You're just walking differently. And that's what this movie. It's like the movie is entirely transitions, all transitional scenes. Like, take out those transitional scenes, and you've got something.
Right.
And yet at the same time, they're like conscious that these scenes are taking too long, so they're editing rapidly through it. So
not only that, but I think J.J. Abrams is counting on his style of flair to, bring us through this.
Sure. Also, something in this scene that got me was the floating trapdoor, which is the most video game the series has ever looked. And I'm including the Droid Factory in here.
Oh well,
I'll say it.
I might disagree with you there, but
there's like a Sonic the Hedgehog style floating platform inside of which is the Emperor's Temple of Doom.
Yes.
And well, this is where we re-meet Palpatine, or clones thereof, and he's got a very different vocal register than what we're used to. So he has a different vocal register in each trilogy.
Yeah.
Because he's gone all Barry White here.
Very, yes.
In the original trilogy, he was very high and whiny. And he was kind of smooth and in the middle with when he was the Chancellor.
Regular voice.
His regular voice, yeah. And this is where we get as much information as we're going to get about who or what Snoke was.
Well, we see that it was kind of like Aliens. It was Snoke in a bottle.
Snoke in a bottle.
I think he even still has his tongue out.
Not even Prince Albert in a bottle, just Snoke in a bottle. And so what I'm getting from this, again, using context clues, not actual dialogue or content.
Yeah, they're not telling us. They're trying to tell us without telling us.
It's just another disposable apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Except this time he's kind of abandoned the idea of apprentices because that hasn't historically worked out for him. And he's just kind of moved straight into cloning.
Yeah.
But which they don't actually talk.
But who would Snoke even be a clone of? Is it a form of the Emperor?
I think so. Well, I mean,
Okay.
again, I say I think so, and I immediately question that because I have no evidence backing me up.
Yeah,
But
right.
my understanding is because isn't there like a few Snokes and a few bottles?
Is there? I remember seeing the one very vividly.
Okay,
But I kind of
so I
wash over this. You know, another Heather Pedersen comment was she let us know that that boy does grab the broom via force in the last
ah,
movie. And I went back and watched it, and I just realized I'd never noticed that before, literally once. He's reaching,
it is very subtle.
yeah, he's
I'll give you
reaching
that.
for the broom, and the last 2 inches
Yeah,
is the broom moving to his hand.
yeah. Which
And I'd never noticed that before, ever.
okay.
Sorry to
Well,
gaslight you again.
well, I know you weren't intentionally gaslighting me there. Also, I sent you the space iron sequence.
Yes.
Should we save comments about that until our next episode? Because we got a lot to get through.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right.
I'll just say I don't know how I forgot it.
I know, yeah. And that one line, I made Snoke, it undoes 2 movies worth of villainy.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as if it was a Snoke screen.
Talk about the letters and the suicide notes that should come with.
That's all from me, everybody. Good night. I'm here all week. Oh, but he talks in the voice of, we have a museum of voices. Like, this is every voice you've heard in your head to Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And it's like Darth Vader, Mustafa from The Lion King. It's what is this? Snoke, Vader.
And somebody else, right?
Is
There's
it just
a third
Snoke and
one.
Vader? Yeah.
Maybe just the Emperor himself as he's talking. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, trying to retcon it as part of a bigger plan, which is classic Sheev. So.
Yeah.
And again, I defer to Pete the Retailer, who quite rightly pointed out in his indefensible defense of this movie that why do we trust anything that the Emperor says in this movie?
Sure.
If you look at the movie through that lens, it becomes a better movie because all of this could be his posturing to try and complete this phase of his plan.
Yeah, sure.
Which if you think about it like that, it also puts Rey's parentage back on the table.
I guess.
No, it's not. It really. There's no evidence for that at all.
So terrible.
But it is funny. It is funny that we all just kind of automatically believe everything that the galaxy's biggest liar says in this movie.
Right.
We've had like 8 movies defining this guy as the least trustworthy character, least reliable narrator in all
in all of yes, in all galaxies that are all far away, far away.
And then this movie is telling us that in order to follow the movie, you have to believe every word he's saying, take it all at face value. And then, to my delight, Palpatine quotes himself in my favorite scene from Revenge of the Sith. except here they're using it as a get out of jail free card. Because
we'll tell them the line.
Okay, yeah. The exact line is the Sith. I can't remember it offhand. What is it?
Your favorite, huh?
Yeah, just my favorite.
What a scathing indictment of your love of the prequels.
And it's JJ's favorite line as well.
Well, how do you know that?
He said it in an interview, when he was trying to, in his propaganda campaign, to convince fans that Palpatine should be coming back. He was like, "Oh, I love that scene from from Revenge of the Sith."
All right.
And just coincidentally, it happens to get me out of a corner I've written myself into.
That's great.
Well, it's about how the Sith, the dark arts of the Sith
are more powerful, all powerful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And no,
powerful
and
enough.
No more explanation.
Powerful enough to get Star Destroyers that I guess were built inside of ice to come out of ice.
I mean, obviously I mind that because it makes no sense, but what I mind more is that when the Star Destroyer fleet come out of the planet core, it's really what the First Order was already.
Mm-hmm.
So the First Order was the remnants of the Empire. So what is this?
The secret remnants.
The secret... Oh, okay, got it. They were the other remnants.
Yeah.
Who were hiding literally inside a planet the whole time.
Thank God this massive fleet with planet-killing power can't leave.
Yeah. So, again, everything we've established with the First Order is now subject to knowledge that they were just kind of like they were like decoys. While this real... I mean, we're talking about it as if they knew this before they wrote it.
Yeah, right.
They made it up as they wrote it.
As if this trilogy was planned.
Yeah, right.
From the beginning.
I guess that's the flaw in our approach, that to treat it as such.
Yeah. But the crux of this entire scene is that the Emperor is going to tell Kylo Ren that he can only get what he wants by killing the girl. And by the girl, we mean Rey.
And well, there's so few women in Star Wars that you can literally say the girl and we all know who you're talking about.
Yeah, true.
We also have the line here, become what your grandfather Vader could not, which doesn't have the same ring about it as, Luke, I am your father, or join me, and it's sort of like, we're talking about
kill your father and take your place by my side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, you remember it. We're really clutching at straws now. It's like, why would any of these people care about anything that their grandparents did?
Yeah.
You know?
Or did not do, as the case may be.
Oh, yeah. Or did not do. It's interesting because this sort of usurping of the First Order as the front line of villainy in this movie. It's kind of like there was a pizza restaurant in the UK called Pizza Express, and one of their appetizers was bread with mozzarella and tomato sauce. So I was like, isn't that just a pizza?
Yeah. Yes. You see that all the time at pizza places now.
I know.
They're like,
now we have this whenever I look,
cheesy bread with pizza sauce on it.
With marinara on, I'm like, no, what you're describing is a pizza. I'm going to eat a bigger version of that later on in the meal. Is it just going to keep getting progressively bigger throughout each course? So my dessert is going to be like
yes, right,
a giant ball of pizza. But this is what JJ gets right in. He's not going to... We puts Rey's parental identity right back on the table.
Yes, absolutely.
Without a moment's delay.
He's not having that.
He's got so much fucking world building to do, but this is what's really preoccupying him right now. Is that we're putting Rey's parentage back into play.
Fantastic.
And then back to Holochess.
Yeah.
So the last movie, the Star Wars iconography you didn't want to see was the dice. In this movie, it's the Holochess. So we've switched up the overused Millennium Falcon iconography.
Well, at least they're gonna tell us about Chewie's age and
they really
how savvy he is, because he's 250 years old.
They really manufactured this arc for him.
Yeah.
Because he had, you see him in original Star Wars and he loses to R2-D2. Then they they retroactively had him in Solo, not even understanding that it was a hologram. Just like banging his fists against the table, not knowing it's a hologram.
And in this one, he's like a sage old wizened chess master, taking his time.
Yeah.
And doesn't it feel too? I feel in this movie more than any of the other movies that they're really trying hard. Like J.J. Abrams is trying hard to manufacture this bromance between Finn and Poe.
Well, that's the thing. It's not a bromance. They're a romantic couple, but the movie refuses to acknowledge that that's what they wrote.
True.
They wrote the foundations of a really good romantic couple, and now they have to play it off as bromance, and it doesn't feel right. First of all, and there's too many creatures on the Millennium Falcon.
Way too many. Yeah,
it's not mass transit.
That
I mean,
snail that's fixing the panel. We've talked a lot about how good a lot of the creatures in these three movies, look.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that one...
It's very Futurama.
Yeah, slaps down on the Millennium Falcon in an oozy pile, and we're just gotta take it.
Like the early days of CGI, like something you see in Casper. But it's just like, it's almost like it's almost like everyone who was on the Falcon escaping from Planet Salt.
Mm-hmm.
Like they saw the Porgs nesting there and thought, oh, I guess anyone can just live on this Falcon. Except now there are no fucking Porgs there because JJ's got a bee in his bonnet about anything Rian Johnson invented.
Yeah.
So I assume Chewie has eaten all the Porgs since then.
Somewhere on the Millennium Falcon, it's like there was a sign that says, "Bring me your tired, your poor, fucking hearing masses." Jesus.
It's like that ship in The Godfather 2. There's like an old timey immigrant playing a violin and a pair of twins. Yeah, it's it's kind of ridiculous. I'm surprised that with all the spiteful walkbacks that JJ did in this movie, that we don't have Chewie just like he's always got like a porg on a stick. Eating it at every turn. He's just
right.
While he's playing holochess, he just leans out of frame and takes a bite of
takes a foot off.
Because JJ decided that Chewie would have eaten the porgs.
Don't you tell me he'd befriend these fucking creatures.
And there's a spy in the First Order, which is an interesting idea. But it turns out to just so we have something for Hux to do in the film.
Yeah, it's bare minimum.
It should have been like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy for Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, right.
But it turns out there's only two possible candidates, and it doesn't turn out to be the one who is clearly a red herring.
Yes. Yeah.
I think he knows how to do a mystery box, but he doesn't know how to do mystery. He's only got the box part of mystery.
He only understands the box. Oh, that's great. Well, let's talk about light speed jumping. Because skipping. Sorry. I wrote down jumping.
Well, I think the skipping is, I wonder if JJ was like spooling through footage, and that's how he came up with the idea of skipping.
Well, I don't know. I think he has the wrong idea of how hyperdrive works. You don't just appear at a new planet every time in the void of space.
Yeah, so I think it's two things. Just like you have to add a new force superpower every movie, you also have to add a new light speed superpower. A new wrinkle to that, because last time was in Force Awakens, where they did we have one in The Last Jedi?
In The Last Jedi, we had.
Yeah, we did.
We had was good tracking.
Speed. Yeah. So tracking through light speed in the last movie. Force Awakens was you could go through a deflector shield with light speed,
something like that. Yeah, and also you can light speed out of a hangar.
Right.
Yeah.
And this one is light speed skipping, which is also a handy metaphor for the pacing of the movie, trying to cram too much information into one. It also essentially makes Star Wars Star Tours.
Yeah.
The ride.
Very much so.
And I'd be up for that if it felt like it was organically part of the movie, that they were leaning into it for a story reason, but of course they're not. They just want to... They've got too much content and they need to get through it as fast as possible.
Sure.
So it's an insult to Star Tours, quite frankly, which for the record is amazing. It's one of the best rides of all time.
Oh, that's great.
Although I do think they will get there, but one of the masterstrokes of this movie is to
one of the what?
Portray what of the what? Portray C-3PO as if he were his character from Star Tours.
Okay. I love 3PO in this movie.
As a tour guide.
Well, all three of these movies, but
this one especially.
But this one is fucking great.
He is the MVP of this movie,
so good.
doubt.
So good.
And then, so we're light speed skipping, going on a little tour of the galaxy, and then back.
You know what it also looks like? It looks like the end credits of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
It very much so.
Yeah.
To add insult to injury. And then we're on planet Jamaica.
Ray's training. We're back to floating
rocks.
It's a
good shot. I like the opening shot of this scene with the through the ferns into the floating rocks. I like, again, the one thing directorially
we know Jedi can do.
That's true. Well, the one aspect of J.J. Abrams' directorial style that I'm always going to be a champion of is that he usually decides to move the camera in the shot rather than cut.
Mm-hmm.
So this is at least a push in.
Yeah.
Which is going out of fashion in directing.
Yeah, I don't know why.
No, I don't know why either. But he's still got some time for that, and that goes back through Spielberg and it goes back through Hitchcock.
Sure.
So you can see that legacy. But then, of course, we're straight into DigiLayer and it's all over. We talked about this ad nauseum when we talked about Dial of Destiny, but to me, there's still this technique should still not be used until you can not make it look like Milhouse's Fallout Boy in The Simpsons, where you're just cutting away to a random shot of someone saying yes,
yeah,
and then cutting back to whatever the digital thing is. And again, this speaks to J.J. Abrams' hubris, this propaganda campaign he went out on prior to this movie, knowing that he'd made so many screenwriting mistakes and directorial mistakes. But he kept telling the fans, it's like, Leia, Carrie Fisher filmed all these scenes for Force Awakens that we didn't use, and I looked at them and it's like, oh, it's all there.
Yeah,
we told that to fans, and then you get to the movie and it's just photo composited shots. Yeah. Most of them, it's like, here's DigiLayer saying one random line, cut to over the shoulder with a couple of JJ's random friends talking. And I'm like, Jesus, that's what you meant? That's just a lie that you had it all there.
I mean, I guess I'll give him only this leeway. When an actor dies in the middle of production like that, you are fucked. Like, what else are you going to do?
But this is the thing, I guess we didn't realize this until the Black Panther sequel, but the thing to do is begin the movie with the funeral of the character the character who was played by the actor who died, because people convinced themselves that was a good movie based on that opening, and if you watch or rewatch that movie,
it's not a good movie.
Nothing happens afterwards.
Yeah.
But people will still tell you it's a good movie because of that scene. So what that would have set up for this movie if they began with the death of Leia. or began with the funeral of Leia.
Yeah,
Then
how
you
about
wouldn't
a
need to do
crawl?
any digital nonsense.
How about a crawl that includes dialogue that says, some bounty hunter found Leia. She's dead. That would be surprising information.
It would be the most Star Wars crawl ever. A bounty hunter killed Princess Leia. She died in the arms of a spice runner while she was on her way to a moisture farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. I think both of our feelings are clear on the use of digital avatars in place of real people.
Oh, God, I almost just asked you a question, but I would have ruined the surprise for you. It's about a movie that we were talking about.
Okay.
It's in theaters now.
Oh, I know. I won't ruin it for the listener, but
Okay.
that's been spoiled for me, and it's not. It wasn't a surprise to me that was the really
man.
No, not at all. I saw what they put that guy in the Donald Pleasance mask.
I know. Yeah.
So, and nobody ended cinema over that. So now they think they can get away with anything.
Now they can do it all the time. So yeah, she's running the course. She's doing Jedi type things, but you're getting this sense that her anger
really is
at play.
Yeah,
because that's how she kills the floating.
The training ball, yeah, the
training ball, which for somehow, oh, that's right, the tree. She cuts down a tree that lands on BB-8.
It's interesting though, like how people making sequels to movies can watch the original movie and get something totally different. Like The Onion, for me.
Yeah, The Onion. I was trying to remember what you called it before.
Yeah, The Floating Onion. I mean, I watch that movie and I go, okay, that's a Jedi starter kit.
Mm-hmm.
You move on from The Onion pretty quickly.
Yeah, after week 1.
Lesson 2 does no longer involve an onion, and yet maybe for cynical reasons that best known to himself, J.J. Abrams is sort of saying, no, I mean that's like the main way you know you're a Jedi, if you can beat the onion.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great Humphrey Bogart movie, by the way, Beat the Onion. It's a later one, but we've got more flashbacks in this scene. Flashbacks including new material.
With the parents?
Yeah, so they do the matinee cliffhanger thing of we get flashbacks to the past couple of movies, only pulling from this trilogy, of course. You don't want to invite comparison between this and the original or the prequels. And then they add material that we've not seen before. Mm-hmm. In that sort of matinee serial cliffhanger way of like, how are we gonna wedge these two together? Oh, we just need to add in stuff that wasn't there before and make it seem like it was there all along.
No, I think J.J. Abrams is actually going for, like, Rey is. I think part of her Jedi training has opened her up enough to see more. I think that's what he's going for.
Skinner? Up yours, children.
Up yours, children.
Yeah, no, I buy that. I can... Yeah, the context clues are there.
Yeah,
to tell me that you might be right. And that's the best we're going to do.
That's the most we can hope for.
I tell you one thing.
Doesn't Kylo Ren interrupt it with a mind hump?
Yeah. He does. Tell you one thing.
I'm not giving up on my mind humps. I'll tell you that much.
I know. You're gonna make mind humps happen. You're gonna mind hump us all into thinking mind humping is a real thing. That's what I'm gonna start calling you, gaslighting. Mind humping.
You're mind humping me.
Yeah, it'll take off. One thing you do not say to a CGI person I'm just not feeling myself.
Yeah.
Leia should have turned around and was like, you're not feeling yourself.
You're not feeling yourself.
I'm a bunch of fucking pixels on my daughter's face. What's wrong with you?
Well, and also, what's this deal about Rey wanting to earn the lightsaber? She's been using this lightsaber for 2 full fucking movies, and she's gonna take it back.
Never felt that way.
5 minutes from now.
Like I remember in Force Awakens, Maz was like, "Here's a lightsaber, go and use it."
Yeah,
and he was just like swacking, like smacking away at anything. So
absolutely.
I know this is undue reverence at this point. The damage has been done. Mm-hmm. Also, remember Poe and Rey met at the end of the last movie, which
yes, they're the best of friends
because something
now.
went wrong.
Yeah,
because something went horribly wrong, and now they have so little to do with them. All they can do is bicker like an old married couple.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the point I was like, maybe the trick was to never have them meet. Like, even now, like, Rey arrives just as Poe's gone and vice versa. Like, it's like a farce almost that they're never going to meet in the entire trilogy.
Yeah, to me, it also, it's almost as if J.J. Abrams still hasn't decided by the end of this, or as we're starting this third movie, who is supposed to be Rey's boyfriend.
Right.
Because it's like, now we're throwing Poe in the hopper. Could be Finn, might be Poe, should be the evil Kylo Ren, but
yeah,
but people would talk.
I've got a third option of what their relationship could be.
Okay.
He died when he was originally supposed to die, and now he's just a Force ghost that only Rey can see.
Nice.
So at the end of this movie, him and his pilot dice disappear. Actually, the entire
all pilots have dice.
Ghosts. That's it. That's how you ended this movie. Everyone apart from Rey is a Force ghost. None of this happened. Clean slate.
Oh, mercy. Yeah, that's good.
None of this scene makes sense. The tension between the parts of the Resistance that are pro-Jedi and the parts that are pro-soldier. First of all, it's never a tension that's been in any iteration of the Rebellion before. And they spent the last 2 movies worshipping Luke Skywalker. All of them.
Yeah, right.
They basically did everything on the like the remote possibility that Luke Skywalker would
had any interest in helping.
Yeah. And now they're turning around and saying, no, like the Jedi the Jedi we're not training Jedi, we're trying to change the galaxy. And it's like, I guess it's what you do when there's no actual tension or conflict. You invent it.
Sure.
But it goes against everything we've seen since 77 Star Wars.
Agreed.
About how rebellions work. So, but I guess if they're willing to mutiny over such a small protocol issue, they're probably willing to go to the mats for this too.
Now, then we have the line that we kind of started with. We don't have to rehash it again, but somehow Palpatine returned. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote, followed by a hobbit.
Yeah.
Like a hobbit is a minor character in this movie.
Not as minor as he should be, though.
True.
Because he's got more to do and say than Rose Tico in this movie.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I think that's the nail in the coffin, I think, for Kelly Marie Tran. That
he's full of bad ideas, too.
She's got less to do than an ex-Hobbit.
Yeah. Well, and I think coming up, there's this moment where Finn kind of puts his hand on her shoulder and then just kind of walks away. I'm like, okay, so we're ignoring the kiss from the last movie, right?
Yeah, he's totally negging her at this point. Yeah. And there's that 2 shot of Rose and Mini Leia, Carrie Fisher's daughter. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, there's like one actor we cut to when we can't cut to Leia, and then the other one who is surplus to requirements in this film.
Yeah.
And speaking of surplus to requirements, Maz is back
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
flesh. Not via hologram this
Whatever
time.
battle she was in is over.
So whatever dialogue they had written for Leia, they have to split it across
Yeah.
other characters because she can no longer say a line because she's dead. Because she's brown bread. So she gets most of Leia's unused dialogue, I suspect.
Yeah, I think so. And also the unfortunate death of Carrie Fisher. We talked at length in the last movie about force projection and that maybe it was just distance that put Luke in the grave.
Yeah.
Or in the air, disappearing. But in this movie, Kylo Ren is right on top of Leia in his TIE fighter, and she's like, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
Or is it later? Maybe it's not that moment where she dies. It's later, right? But he's close by.
It's much later.
Yeah, he's close by, and I just remember thinking, oh, she must have been weak to not. She doesn't even have to force project. She just has to say, hey, I'm here. What are you doing? And that's enough to do her in.
It's a long time. It's going to be a long time coming, but I don't think I know what she does particularly to turn him good.
Yeah.
And why didn't she do this before?
It seems as though she makes Harrison Ford appear.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Which even his agent
didn't want.
Can't normally do.
I'll tell you what, why don't we take our first break?
Yeah, let's do it.
And then we'll come back. See if we can...
Well, we've gone full circle. We've got to the line that we started the episode with.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
We're all is well in the world.
If you like podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to...
Stay on target.
And check out the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to...
Stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to...
Stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. And we're back, everyone. Tom and I are here trying to get through The Rise of Skywalker. I think I'm in the end going to have to call this a bad movie.
Well, we'll see. We'll talk about it in our pitch episode.
All right. Well, it's at this point, at least in my notes, after somehow Palpatine returned, that Rey learns she needs to find the plot point. So we need that Sith Wayfinder. And then...
Well, the Jedi... So this is interesting, because this goes against my albeit brief understanding of what the Jedi texts were.
Mm-hmm.
Because this movie makes it look like they're a treasure map.
Well, it also, they're supposed to be, sage old texts from the past, and then apparently they're just Luke's notes.
Yes, right.
So...
Yeah, so when he said sacred Jedi text, was he actually just talking about his diaries?
Yeah, exactly.
There was nothing before he started writing his diary when he was a teenager. The first few entries are just went to Toshi Station.
Yeah, right. Also,
Uncle Owen called me home.
It's supposed to be self-reflective. You're supposed to grow as you are writing in journals, right? Luke does none of that. He's just the same old piece of shit brat he was when we started, when we meet him again in the last movie.
But I guess the point is, this is not what the Jedi texts were, but it's what we need them to be, so we can tell this story of a needlessly protracted journey linked together through the wayfinders.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where Rose tells us that she is staying. It's her own choice. She makes that clear.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to stay on the planet. We're not keeping her there.
Well, I think
So
JJ wants to keep her there.
yeah, this is well. This is. I mean, it's a straight up writing it as if it's her own choice to do it.
Yeah,
is his way of like dog whistling to the toxic male racists. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's the worst sin of all, is that
right.
he took the criticism of lowlifes like that to heart when writing
and appeased them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like fucking Chamberlain at Munich. And I can talk about this because he's doing the same thing. It's appeasing Nazis. That's a perfectly reasonable comparison.
Yes, absolutely.
Both of them are appeasing Nazis.
But now, I also have a note here, because there was I think I mentioned in our ranking episode that it feels as though Abrams is borrowing from other movies. You say that Spice is involved in Star Wars before. But
it is.
all
Spice
right.
Mines of Castle.
That's fine.
I'm not gaslighting you like your mind humps.
No. My mind humps are not gaslighting. That's something you just made up.
No, that's you gaslighting me that I just made it up.
How dare you? But
that's the great thing about gaslighting. When you're not being gaslighted, you could always argue gaslighting.
But didn't you notice that? Well, maybe you don't care enough about Harry Potter to remember this, but this felt very Harry Potter to me, where Rey is saying, "No, I have to go alone. It's got to be all me. It's too dangerous." And then the friends are like, "Yeah, we're going with you."
Sure.
And they have to remind them that, "Hey, we're a family and we care about you." Felt very Harry Potter.
It's anything but Star Wars, right?
Uh-huh.
Any franchise but Star Wars. Yeah, no, I totally buy that. Why I think it's just on Planet Jamaica. The image is so fuzzy.
I noticed that a couple times. Yeah.
The color is turned up way too bright. It's out of focus. It's like all the kind of tendencies of old Hollywood that have gradually been filtered out of filmmaking came back. Technicolor and soft focus at once. I found it very distracting. But it's something I did like.
Apes building helmets?
Well, no. Before that, the moment where C-3PO says goodbye to R2-D2 absolutely killed me.
Oh, yeah.
How is it that they can write this character so well and no others? This is a genuinely affecting moment.
I don't get
between
it.
Two characters. And yet, whenever Poe and Rey talk to each other, or Rey and Finn, or Rey and anyone, it feels really hollow.
Yeah.
You know, the metal characters shouldn't be
full of life.
Part of your movie. Oh yeah, and I noted here as well that part of the Leia scene is done with over the shoulder ADR, which is sort of one step below the guy holding his cape across the face to pretend to be Bela Lugosi in Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's just a digital version of that.
Right.
But yeah, as you said, Kylo Ren takes himself to Sith chimp mask repair.
At least those chimps have horns on their head, it looks like to me. For JJ to try to distinguish them from regular chimps. They've got helmets and horns.
Well, that's it, though. That's the only thing. Because when you go into the close-up of the chimp's face, you're like, that's just a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
We've gone straight past the idea of chimp-like aliens. And he's just like put a chimp in a welding mask and sent him out there. And this is a line that I refuse to be gaslighted on or mind humped by J.J. Abrams on.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, let's get an independent observer's view. What does one of the stormtroopers So one of the stormtroopers says to the other, "The Knights of Ren." What does the other one say in response?
I don't remember. I didn't write it down.
So I'll tell you what he says. He says goals. Like hashtag SWAT goals. Guaranteed this is what he said. Now, various people have tried to walk this back by saying, no, he says ghouls. Like, oh, they're so ghoulish. They're
Actually,
ghouls.
I think I remember that it sounds like ghouls.
Totally. He says it's the nadir of contemporary slang in Star Wars sequels. He says goals, like hashtag squad goals. I guarantee you.
Every time we do one of these episodes, I got to go back and watch 5 seconds.
I'm just creating more work for you.
Yeah.
And it's a while from now, but I don't even want to get into what the hell Wedge says. Because I have 2 possibilities there.
Okay.
So one of the stormtroopers knows about hashtag SWAT goals.
All right.
And then we get into the worst ever John le Carre novel. The 2 possible spies, one of whom is a red herring.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you ever see the set? Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, because in that scene, right, Kylo Ren is talking to the group of generals, and he force lifts someone to the ceiling and chokes them.
Right.
And I don't think any of the 2 directors of these 3 movies understand what the menace of force choking is supposed to be.
No. Right.
When we first see Vader force choke that guy that's questioning him in Star Wars 77, it is full of dread and menace. This is a comic beat.
Right.
And they're just always getting it wrong. It's so upsetting.
It's like the prototype should be in Thunderball when Blofeld presses the button and the guy goes down into a fiery pit. But what they're actually doing is the Austin Powers version.
Yes, exactly. Right.
With Will Ferrell and the Fez. I need
I'm
some
severely
antibacterial
burned,
cream.
but I'm still alive.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the comedic beat, all of these scenes read to me like the Saturday Night Live
version
Undercover
of
Boss parody segment with Kylo Ren. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that was good.
It was just like, it almost could be outtakes from that.
Yeah.
Right down to the whole thing of the generals kind of like stepping over themselves to compliment Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
It felt very The Office. And certainly not Star Wars.
And then I also kind of wondered, because now that he's the supreme leader,
Sure.
there's in Star Wars, it seems to me that it always works better. It works better in the original trilogy when you have, say, the Emperor, or what's his name in the first movie?
Darth Maul?
No. In Star Wars 77.
Oh,
Peter
Tarkin.
Cushing. Tarkin. It's always good when Vader's overstepping his bounds and there's somebody else there to say, release him.
I agree.
Not stop this. Like, knock that shit off.
Or at least that to be a possible, the trend we talked about before, the transition from Star Wars to Empire with Vader is that he's a heavy in Star Wars, and then because Tarkin's killed, he gets a field promotion.
Yeah, but you're also always getting an occasional hologram talk with somebody that that's in charge.
Right, but I mean, it's part of the movie, isn't it? Because you get Admiral Ossel condescending to him, and then he deals with that, and then he finally gets Piet, who is going to be his ringer. He's just he's so subservient to him. So it's like a part of the movie, but here it feels complete. As you say, they're a slave to what's the funniest way he can force choke people.
Well, meanwhile, we're at the kite festival.
Up and away in my beautiful balloon. Just see like Martin Prince going around in a circle at the air show.
Yeah.
Oh, not the box kites. And it's yet another Tatooine surrogate planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yet another planet that is basically Tatooine, but doesn't seem to be Tatooine.
Right.
It's almost worth the digression to this kite festival. By the way, they've started like a clock at this point in the movie, right? Like when they were back on planet Jamaica, they were like, we've only got we've got I can't remember what this like 48 hours or something like that
Before they can
before
leave.
Before the galaxy's done. So they started a ticking clock, and they immediately go into a kite festival digression, which is not good storytelling. But it's almost worth it because you get to see, maybe for the first time ever in Star Wars, what C-3PO is like doing his real job.
Yes.
Because he's the one who's giving information to the tourists as a protocol droid would. Isn't there a moment, I wrote the turnaround bit, isn't there a moment where he's kind of like...
No, yeah, there's a great bit when he's explaining stuff about the kite festival, and they all turn, like 5 people turn around and look at him like, this is not the time for that. And he looks at them for a good 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then looks behind himself as though they must be looking behind him. It's a great bit.
It's a great bit, and... You know, in the big scheme of things, it's all, you know, to see C-3PO finally in context. Also, you know, I'm a sucker for a cute animal. I love the cute pig baby.
All those, we're back to good-looking creatures again.
Yeah, but this is a weird slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're back in
but it also feels as though it's just... Part of it is just the one moment. For JJ, it's just the one moment where the creature asks Rey, they're asking each other's names.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, what's your name? And she says, Rey. And then 3PO says, what's your surname? She goes, I don't have one. I'm just Rey. So that he's setting up the Skywalker bit at the end.
True.
And so that's the only reason we have
actual Tatooine.
Yeah, on actual Tatooine. But it's the only reason we have...
Yeah, she thought about her surname in the desert. You're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't clock that, but yeah. And so more telecommuting with the Force.
Yeah, more mind
which
hump.
Proves
mind
that
hump.
long distance relationships never work.
But it did at least. In that moment, it kind of connected me back to those moments where, like, say, in Jedi, where Luke says, I'm endangering the mission, I shouldn't have come. And so just the idea, like, when they're, you know, that idea of we have to send Rey, and I thought they were going to make more of it, of Rey saying, I'm the last person they should have sent, because anytime Kylo Ren's near, he's going to know exactly where I am.
It's so interesting that, isn't it, that in Return of the Jedi they make a point of that, and here they back away from it. Like,
they don't give it voice.
Like, and this is what I was saying about watching these movies while watching the Rockwood Files. It's like you can have if you want your story, if you want this character to be part of the story, and it's out of character for them to be a part of the story, talk about it on screen, make it work. And obviously, Return of the Jedi in '83, that is still part of screenwriting craft. But I think it wouldn't necessarily be the same now. They go, but there are all these problems. Well, let's just move past it.
Well, you know what's interesting to me is I felt like I saw it on Daisy Ridley's face. That she was recognizing that was what was happening, and I thought, well, just give it voice.
They don't write it that way. She's like a drunk friend who keeps getting people into trouble.
That's true.
I mean, when Luke says he jeopardizes the mission, he's being a little bit coy, like, it's not that big a deal. But Rey seriously is jeopardizing the mission. She leaves them for dead about 10 or 12 times.
Yeah.
Of course, but I quite like the scene, although it does show that Kylo Ren has an even bigger turnaround than Vader to be redeemed by the end of this movie.
Yeah, right.
Because when we did the original trilogy, I think we talked about how they're sort of stoking the fires of his redemption from the moment that he drops his hand at the end of Empire.
Mm-hmm.
When Luke falls down the shaft and he kind of his shoulders slump, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is the beginning of it. And
Right.
then as Jedi goes on, you see the cracks start to emerge.
Sure.
But here we've gone in the opposite direction, where he's like the most evil person. He's like beyond the most evil person in the galaxy at this point.
Trying to run her down with a fucking TIE fighter.
Which makes their job even harder of him having to be redeemed, which, as I've also said earlier in the trilogy, I think that boat sailed.
Mm-hmm.
I think in order to make the Han Solo impaling work, you can't walk it back at the end of this movie.
Mm.
But and this this is also where we find out that you can actually move objects through space using the Force.
Yes.
With the bead exchange.
Yeah. And isn't that the part where you said I'm out?
Yeah.
That felt like a convenience for JJ. Because he makes it a point.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, teleportation, I feel, is a different beast. I feel like it's when you think about, if you add teleportation into a sci-fi franchise, you've got to kind of decorate around it like they do in Star Trek, where it's like, we've been working on this technology for, like in Enterprise, you see them come, with the first transporter, and they're only using it for freight, and humans are like still not 100% safe going in there, and
yeah.
You can't just throw teleportation in like that, I don't think.
Fine.
But yeah, let's talk about something happier.
Like Lando?
Which is the return of Lando Calrissian. Who is Lando Calrissian because he's wearing yet another unwieldy and needless mask. Like he did in Return of the Jedi.
He needed that mask in Jedi.
Well, why did he keep pulling his face out from it then?
So we could see it.
So we could see him, yeah. But I tell you, I remember seeing Billy D. Williams on Dancing with the Stars. That's not him in the mask running around because his knees can't take that amount of
I know.
damage. I was like, those aren't Billy D's knees. I saw him on Dancing with the Stars. But it's a great, I don't remember feeling this joy when I first watched it in the movie theater.
Mm.
But I felt a real joy this time when he takes off his mask. And even the line is really good.
Yeah.
Because Wookiees stand out in a crowd. Said in the sort of the Billy D style.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reaction of the reaction of Chewie, which is pure excitable
It does give you
dog.
the warm and fuzzies. At least it did
like
for
those,
me.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's like all those Instagram videos of veterans returning from war and their dogs seeing them for the first time in 5 years. That was the vibe of this.
Yeah.
Because I love the fact that Chewie pushes past everyone to get to Lando and hug him, which is great as well because these guys have been through the mill, right?
Mm-hmm.
They took a long time for them to get to this point because he tries to strangle him to death in Empire.
Yes, right.
And then, of course, we're immediately drowned in bad storytelling because we have to talk about Wayfinders.
Talk about Wayfinders. We got to wedge in I got a bad feeling about this.
I like that it's Lando saying it. The line itself has been worn down to a nub.
Do they do it in the other 2 movies?
This BB-8 says it in droid language. Or I guess Bill Hader or Benjamin Schwartz say it. And Doesn't Harrison Ford say it in Force
Does he?
Awakens?
Okay.
Or he starts to say it and gets interrupted.
Maybe. Yeah. All right.
But Billy D. Williams is much better than I remember him being in when I first saw this movie. I don't know.
I agree. You know, it occurred to me that I had this question when he, you know, they start seeing the baddies approaching. And the first thing our heroes do is get out of the truck that's covering where they are. And they just start running away and get immediately seen. And I thought, well, what the fuck are they doing that for? And then I thought, it's probably because Billy D. Williams is too old to be able to do anything of consequence with them.
These days. And good for him.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a great line at the end of his scene where he says, "Give Leia my love."
Yeah. I wrote that down.
Still got that trickle of sleaze in his voice.
Hey, when Han left her for a brief moment, did those two fuck?
I had exactly the same thought. I think he's like, I love that he's playing it as if he thinks he still has a chance.
Yeah, right.
You know what I love? I love a digital woman.
I like myself a digi woman.
The more pixels, the better. Pixels in all the right places.
But it also came as a surprise to me. This, I don't know. Maybe it'll be part of your pitch. I kept thinking I could work this into a pitch somehow. This idea of a movie of Luke and Lando looking for wayfinders and daggers.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So they introduced the idea of the Jedi Hunter at this point. They're trying to stitch together the three trilogies about as elegantly as that chimp did with the Ren Mask.
Yes.
But what we're actually talking about is hunting a man who could lead to a clue that could lead to a wayfinder. How many times removed is that from the plot?
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, I don't know if there's any more thing. I don't know if you have any reaction to that, but I mean,
no, I felt the same. It's weird because I'm of, like I said, that we're in the second act now. The second.
This is the second act. Okay, great.
Yeah, you said you couldn't
find
I like
this
it,
scene.
But once Rey leaves to go look for the Wayfinder with her friends, I think we're in the second act. And a lot of this I like. I like seeing Lando. I think he's good. I wish, he wasn't. I wish his age and his physicality wasn't betraying him, so that we could see him do more.
But that's why we're crying out for that fucking other Star Wars series that's never going to happen, with Donald Glover as young Lando and him narrating it as an old man. I mean, it's tailor-made for where he is in his life and where Donald Glover is in his life.
Absolutely.
It just ain't going to happen because Disney doesn't want us to be happy. Weirdly enough, given that they built their entire brand on that, they actually want us to suffer.
They actually want us to be sad and miserable.
Yeah, it's true. If you've ever been to Disneyland in the past 2 or 3 years, you'll know that for a fact.
Well, at any rate, they do leave Lando's safe container and find the speeders. Now,
Nice.
Can I ask you, is there something way funnier about They Fly Now than that I'm just not getting?
Oh!
Like hearing the line 3 times?
No.
I didn't think so.
Well, it's another self-parody moment. I think it's up there with somehow Palpatine Returned, because it's tacitly admitting that we've run out of ideas to the point that we're reverting to the age-old sequel tradition of when you run out of ideas for your characters, have them fly. Which, of course, Star Wars is known for with R2-D2 anyway.
Yeah.
We RoboCop 3. He flies now. So I think it's a tacit admission. There's nowhere to go with variations of Stormtroopers.
Yeah,
anymore.
I guess you're right. I just there's part of me that says, wow, you could combine the speeder chase in Jedi with
that's what I wrote.
the pod race
Yes.
in Phantom Menace, and you
This
have
does feel
something
like it
interesting.
takes place. I wrote down this space chase. This chase takes place in Beggar's Canyon or thereabouts. But they're still peppering in that bad dialogue that you just quoted, and then also we can pass by a ship that Rey remembers seeing.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "I've seen that ship before," and we're kind of, it's like, to your point about Rey's consciousness, we're sort of opening old wounds in world, just as JJ opens old wounds narratively in the script. The issue of parentage is settled.
Until it's not.
But now we have to believe that Rey suddenly remembers that
she was on that ship.
There was more to that story than we saw on screen of her being. Did we see someone? Didn't we all assume that it was Unkar Plutt pulling her away?
Oh.
Because in this movie,
I think they even kind of, there's like a hand.
Whoever this Jedi hunter is, or
yeah,
I'm still not
there's
sure.
a hand on her that suggests that was him.
Doesn't he say, "That's my ship"?
Does he? I don't remember if the dialogue's there or not.
That's the only dialogue I remember him saying.
Okay.
That would tell me it was him. And then we're back in quicksand.
Yeah, the sinking sand.
So,
which also reminds me, by the way, of Harry Potter, because it feels like that first movie.
It's interesting though, like we get to Force Awakens, we've never had quicksand in the series. And by the end of the trilogy, we've had it twice.
We've had it twice, yeah. JJ likes his quicksand. But it's funny because...
Which, it's matinee territory, right? It's the...
Yes. But it's like
a Western serial.
It reminds me kind of Blazing Saddles a little bit.
Completely.
But the
parody, the Mel Brooks parody version of the thing you're
exactly. And then the other part is that it reminded me more of Harry Potter because it seems like this terrible, dangerous thing, and then they fall through it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Interesting. Oh, and this is where Finn does his Elaine in the Seinfeld finale routine.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's about... so he's about to say something which is either "I love you" or "I think I'm force sensitive," or maybe a combination of the two. I love you, so I need to tell you I'm force sensitive.
Yes, they're gonna make hay out of this for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I mean that her line, because Elaine's line in Seinfeld was a ruse, then wasn't it? It was sort of like the note they kept getting through the series was, we want Jerry and Elaine to end up together. Yeah. So they threw this in, and it turned out she was just saying, "I love U.S. Airlines." But this is even more of a ruse now, except the movie refuses to admit it's a ruse in the way that Seinfeld cleverly did.
But I'll tell you the thing I do like. I really like when they all fall through and, "You all right? You all right? You okay? Everybody all right?" And C-3PO says, "You didn't ask for me, but I'm all right."
I think he even says, I believe, maybe I'm rewriting better, but I think he even says, "You forgot to ask me, but I'm all right."
That's so good.
Yeah, all of C-3PO's background dialogue in this scene is 100% funnier than whatever's going on in the foreground.
Yes.
I wish we could do like a Harry Cole, like switching of the microphones at this point and just hear,
right,
just hear what C-3PO is saying. And then there's a very weird moment here where we do a lightsaber lightsaber flashlight gag.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is not the time to reveal that we're actually in a school play version of Star Wars.
I bet that joke got huge laughs in the theater. I can't remember, but it's the dumbed down kind of comedy that I think audiences of today seem to gravitate to for some reason.
It took me a while to actually get into the movie theater to see this. I'd say it wasn't like in one of the first few days. It was between Might have even been after New Year that I finally got to see it in the movie theater. And it was a daytime showing, so I got no sense of what other people thought about it.
Okay.
It's like this whole sequence, you said Harry Potter, this also reminds me of the Goonies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without the self-awareness. And wasn't Super 8 kind of basically J.J. Abrams' The Goonies?
Was it the Goonies?
Goonies mixed with Close Encounters.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because of the kids, yes.
Yeah.
But not the sort of fun adventure
general,
part.
Yeah.
But yeah, more than anything, because there's so much lens flare in that movie. It's his opus to Steven Spielberg.
It's his opus to lens flare.
Oh man, and it is not good.
Terrible. I bet you're surprised I feel that way about the movie, don't you?
Every time I think about that train wreck, that CGI train wreck at the beginning of that movie,
It's bad.
terrible. Watch The Fugitive, please. That's how you do a train wreck.
Nearly kill your lead actor. So we've set into motion Finn's mystery box. This is the deal or no deal part where everyone's getting their own mystery box. Because Poe's got a mystery box too, which he's doing the deal or no deal thing where you use toxic male behavior to kind of deflect from whether you've got the money in your box. Because it's sort of like, why are you behaving so shitty? That's his mystery box, essentially. And we're going to find out that because he's insecure about being a former drug smuggler.
Yeah.
Is basically it. And as if the clue... So we're hunting a guy to get a clue that might lead to a wayfinder. And now, in order to get the clue, which is already twice removed from getting the thing you want, we add another obstacle that C-3PO knows what it is, but refuses to translate it because it's against his program.
Can't.
Which
I've seen the dagger. I can tell you what it says, except I can't tell you what it says.
Which is, just obviously another narrative obstacle for the sake of having a narrative obstacle. It's almost worth... having just to hear C-3PO shout, "Serpent! Serpent!" I love the fact that they know the character so well, they even know how he would describe this worm thing.
Yeah.
Serpents!
Well, then on top of that, we're going to have kind of a thorn in the lion's paw moment. And we're going to learn we're going to learn a new thing about the Force that we never knew.
Well, it's new if we hadn't watched this that week. If you're watching this on opening night and you hadn't seen that week's Mandalorian, because you know the story here that they trial ballooned it in the episode of The Mandalorian that came out days before this went on wide release.
Oh, so they positioned it.
They had Baby Yoda force heal Carl Weathers.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved that episode so they had a week's break. Everyone was like, The Mandalorian was like first few three episodes, then there was a break, like randomly in the middle of the season, and was like, why do we not get a Mandalorian this week? And then Baby Yoda force heals Carl Weathers as a way to make it look like this is something that exists in universe.
Yeah, right.
So they used the Mandalorian as a kind of guinea pig for this.
That's funny.
And they timed it so it would, they'd be able to. You could have it go from the Baby Yoda doing it, and remember how popular Baby Yoda is at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
So if he does it, then suddenly
it's got to be okay.
Like an unnecessary Force superpower that we've just crowbarred in once again.
So Favreau and Abrams were conspiring?
Well, certainly, yeah. They must have been. Yeah, exactly. The franchise was kind of working together to promote this. To use the Mandalorian, use the goodwill generated by the Mandalorians to excuse some of the narrative atrocities in this movie.
All right.
Yeah, they got the Mandalorian to do their dirty work, basically. And so we get the second sighting. Now, a lot's been said about the Knights of Ren throughout this trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Were you expecting them to be more impressive than they ended up being? I mean, to me, they just look like an early draft of Kylo Ren designs.
Oh, to me, they look like early drafts of something from Lord of the Rings.
But a lot is made of how impressive they are. And then when you see them, you kind of wonder what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, well,
And they don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. They don't really have anything to do except lose to Kylo Ren later. And I find myself thinking of what are in Lord of the Rings, the 7, is it 7? Those 7 terrible beings on the horses, the dark horses.
Okay, yeah.
And
I vaguely know what you're talking about.
When they're chasing Liv Tyler.
Okay.
And she has to kind of raise the level of the water so that they can't pass. That scene is like they're terrifying as they're chasing her. And I felt like that's what this movie wanted these people to be, and they never reached that level.
But then you've got to have them do something.
Exactly. They never do anything.
Wow.
Except, are they even the ones that find Chewie and put Chewie on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't. All they have to do is put...
Also, they do Chewie dirty in that moment where he's going off to look for Rey. And those fuckers are about 7 feet to his right. He's walking away like he never would have seen them.
But remember, once again, this is old Chewie. His eyes are not once what they were. His knees are not what they were.
That's the actor.
No, that's
No, by this time it's not the actor. I know.
It's Chewie. Yeah, Chewie is Arthur. He can't get away fast, and he also can't see what's around him. Well, they do Chewie dirty by manipulating our affection for the character into a fake out of his death.
Yeah.
And then they do it again later in the movie with Babu Frick and...
I gotta tell you, it would have been the bravest thing they'd done maybe in any Star Wars movie if they had Chewie actually die and it was because of Rey.
Sure. Because she's the drunk friend who keeps getting her, her compatriots into trouble. I agree. But if you know you're not going to do it, then there's no reason to prey on people's emotions towards a beloved character like this. For the sake of a surprise reveal in the middle.
Could you imagine if they've gotten C-3PO, our favorite character in these 3 movies, and all the characters in world would be like, they can have him. They wouldn't go back to this ship to get him.
It's so funny as well. It's so interesting, like, that you can... J.J. Abrams' feelings towards the characters that the robot characters that he's created comes out in the screenplay, because everyone basically ignores C-3PO and are happy to send him to his death at any given point in the movie. And yet, the number of times in this movie where people's going, "You're doing it, BB-8! Go on, you're doing great!" They're cheering him on.
Yeah.
Not to mention, when we haven't even got into D.O. yet, J.J. Abrams voicing a robot that saves the galaxy. But this reverence is only reserved for these new droids that J.J. Abrams came up with.
Yeah.
But R2 and C-3PO can go fuck themselves, basically, as far as any of the characters in the movies are concerned.
All right, now I'm going to move on.
Okay, good. Thank you. I know you were like, I'm looking for an elegant segue, but I'm just going to say this because let's just get out of here.
Because I want to know what you think of...
This is a trap. It's a trap!
I want to know what you think of Rey facing the TIE fighter and cutting the wing off.
It's like a random action sequence generator that's come out. Jedi versus TIE fighter.
I knew you'd hate it.
Well, I mean, it's another indication that we've run out of ideas. It's like we don't have many undone combinations of action, but one Jedi facing off a ship is kind of the only thing that's left.
I thought it was generous that he never fired any lasers at her.
Yeah.
Having said that,
It
I
also-
think it's shot pretty well.
Is there a bad way to shoot? I mean, is there a
Yeah,
bad way
I don't
to
know.
shoot? I mean, McG might find a way, but
I mean, J.J. Abrams is basically competent enough.
McG
to-
would have just followed
do it.
her feet and then followed the feet flipping up.
Yes. Yeah, I think it looks fine. It's stupid. But also the other problem with it is, like, the powers of survival and the dragging ship out of the air means that the Jedi are essentially invincible at this point.
So that was one thing on this rewatch that I don't think I paid attention to at first, because there's no establishing shot of Kylo Ren getting out of that ship, which means he survived the crash, the roll, and the explosion.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive.
It is, yeah.
And then I'm of two ways of this force battle, because I like... Part of it seems kind of hokey, but I like the idea of him pushing her, like trying to force her to find a way to the dark side, and that being more power for her.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we're kind of seeing power flow through a good Jedi to see the lightning bolts, but in a surprised way. I mean, we see it from Yoda in the prequels.
He doesn't use lightning, does he?
Don't they kind of meet lightning, or does he just absorb his lightning?
He's just absorbing the lightning.
Oh, I thought he had some lightning of his own.
I think they have finally broken the seal on good Jedis using lightning at some point, but I don't think it's happened in any of the movies.
Okay.
It's happened somewhere in the franchise, I think.
I like the idea,
Well, she's
from
a
a writing
Palpatine.
standpoint, I like the idea of her losing control.
Well, yeah, but they've got basically again, like it's going back to what was said between her and Luke on Planet Island about, you went straight to the dark side. I've never seen that happen before. So, in the context of that of The Last Jedi, it was about a new kind of power that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
But JJ's kind of manipulating that, massaging it so it looks like, oh well, that means she's a Palpatine.
You know
Which,
what's
to
odd?
be fair,
You know,
I always thought that was one of the strong possibilities of what her grandparentage was. That she was a Palpatine.
Okay. I don't remember
Not that
my
I think it's the
thoughts
right way
at the
to
time.
go. Not that that's the right way to go after you've done what you did in The Last Jedi, but which I think most people were like, that's much more interesting than
Right.
than it being all genetics again. But of course, JJ's like, no, it's just families of force power. Nepo baby.
Nepo.
I think this is about where we get all the stuff with Chewie and the fake out there,
Yeah.
which at least they don't dwell on that for another half hour or whatever. We find out pretty quickly that he's still alive, and
Yes.
it's just that Rey thinks she's killed Chewie, which, you know, that there's no going back from that, really.
No, yeah.
I mean, that's worse than killing all those child Jedis in the
Right.
temple.
Yeah, exactly. But dramatically, it's more interesting.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I was going to say was that despite the fact that she killed, like, we're supposed to be meant that she kills Chewie in this moment, that she's flirting with the dark side, that Luke has never seen anybody go to the dark side that quickly. I never get the sense that I should be as worried about Rey as Rey is about herself.
Completely, yeah.
And I think that's a real weak point for this trilogy.
It is, and there's also the knowledge that the kind of commercial logic behind it is that that they would never let Rey go to the dark side because she's the hero of the franchise, and all the toy lines and the kind of address to young women as a kind of role model.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but there's this idea because you have the same overall thing in the original trilogy with Luke. People are trying to pull him to the dark side. Yoda's worried about him leaving too soon, or he might be drawn to the dark side. And dramatically, I think all of that plays, and here it doesn't for some reason. And I don't know. I'm curious about that.
Well, it's because it's so superficial, and they wanted that image of her in the hood with the red lightsaber in the trailer just to kind of give something for people to talk about, even though you have no intention of backing that up with anything that happens in the movie.
Yeah.
It's the ghoulie on the toilet all over again.
You like that ghoulie.
I love the fact that... Well, no, I love the story for two reasons. I love the story that they did that. It became so popular that they realized they'd have to put it in the movie, but that they actually went back and filmed it. Mm-hmm. They were like, this is what people want, let's give them what they want.
Yeah, I like that.
And that seems to be an anathema to most... It's almost like Star Wars modern day Star Wars works on the opposite principle. It's like, what can we take out from here that people want? I don't
know if I've ever actually seen the Ghoulies. I'll make a point to watch that this October.
We should cover this. There's a few sequels in there. I'm sure.
I think so.
2 at least.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do Ghoulies with you.
All right. Ghoulies.
That's what the Stormtrooper says earlier in the movie. He says, Ghoulies. I don't think it's going to become like our Halloween signature. I think we should still do Nightmare on Elm Street after this year.
Yes, I agree. But
I don't think we should... I think it would piss a lot of people off if we were just like, you know what? We decided we were just going to do Ghoulies instead. I think we'll do it at another time of the year.
Well, I'll talk to you about it later. I'll talk to you. It might be a good follow-up.
Oh yeah.
After our October films.
Well, the problem is there are so many horror sequels and horror franchises that you can't wait for Halloween every year to do them. Sometimes you just gotta bite the silver bullet and do it.
Oh, I watched that movie for the first time last Halloween. I loved it.
Amazing.
So good.
Any movie with Gary Busey improvising.
Even DC Cab.
The story about him. He had to improvise 2 child's names in a scene where he introduces like two of his daughter's friends. Oh, and I can't remember what it is now, but it's something like one of them is called like Parmigiano or something. Like all he had to do like improvise was come up with 2 normal kids' names, and one of them was like Parmigiano.
That's amazing. All right, well, let's get to your amazing wheel droid.
Oh, D.O. Yeah.
D.O., baby.
Yeah. I mean, the hubris. Give yourself the voice of a robot.
Is that the only reason you hate it, or do you hate the droid too?
No, I mean, the fact that it seems to have been created from a couple of paper cups doesn't help.
I think the first time I saw D.O., I kind of liked that it was a different looking droid in the sense of just that one big wheel, and we hadn't seen anything really like it. I don't know.
Well, we don't need another droid. We're having trouble writing anything for the droids we have.
That's true.
So at this point, we're just introduced. I mean, this is the beginning of a part of the movie where.
But you'll admit
a lot of new characters.
You'll admit that if we try to give what D.O. has to, say, BB-8, like BB-8 just had whatever that plan or map or whatever is deep in his circuit somewhere, that would seem too convenient. Not that this doesn't, but...
I don't mind convenience if it's going to get us to the clue that will lead... The man that leads to the clue that will lead to the...
To the
Wayfinder,
box
which
that
might
leads us to the place.
That will lead to another Wayfinder. And then a combination of Wayfinders will lead us to where we want to ultimately go.
Yeah.
And then, because we've also got Space Felicity.
I like Zori.
I don't like the character. I mean, obviously, Carrie Russell is magnificent.
Because I love Carrie Russell.
Why we can't see Carrie Russell's face
That's odd.
Baffles me.
Yeah.
She's got one of the best faces. I mean, the whole of The Americans is done through her face.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's another great character actor playing a character that doesn't quite work and goes nowhere. So we're 3 for 3. Benicio del Toro's Laura Dern, Carrie Russell. It's funny that this is the sort of where we find out that Poe is a spice runner, which is in world is drug smuggling, and it's made a big deal of, even though it seems to be one of 3 galactic occupations that you can have: bounty hunter, moisture farmer, spice runner. That's it. If you don't work for the Empire or the Rebellion, that's all you can do in Star Wars. I'll tell you something I do like we're going to get to... I think we're very shortly going to get to the one thing that the only thing that there is consensus about.
Okay.
In the viewership of this movie. But there's a scene where they go into the back room where C-3PO is going to get his brain changed. Well, before we get there, they go through. They have like a mini cantina. Like it's like to get to the back room, you have to walk through like a small cantina. And I like that they were like, okay, well, let's not have another cantina scene. Let's just have a brief fleeting. You can see there are aliens at a bar, but we just kind of move through it very quickly. And then the bartender's John Williams.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm sort of like, okay, this is win-win. Right, we get a John Williams cameo, and we don't have to sit through another cantina scene. And then,
actually, everything on this planet, I like the look of.
Yeah. What's the name of the planet again?
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. And then Babu Frick, who I think is the only aspect of the movie there's any consensus on.
Yeah.
It's great creature design.
Awesome.
The vocal work is excellent. It's cute as anything. It's size.
One of my favorite things is 3PO, after having his mind wipe, says, Babu Frick, he's one of my oldest friends.
That's great.
That's so good.
There's also the best exchange in the movie, maybe even the trilogy, is as soon as C-3PO's mind is rebooted, he introduces himself to Babu Frick, and then Babu Frick just kind of plays along. It's like, I am C-3PO, human cyber relation. Hey, I'm Babu Frick! and then you hear the beginning, and he's like, hello! And he starts to have a conversation. Yeah. I was like, I want to follow that conversation. Yeah. Speaking of C-3PO, there is an absolutely gorgeous moment of Anthony Daniels' physical acting here, when he's about to go into the chair that's gonna, I mean, let's face it, kill him.
Yeah.
To all intents and purposes. And there's a little slump of the shoulders. And, it's doubly affecting because you know how hard you have to work
to do
make
that.
Even a small gesture.
Yeah.
When you're doing that kind of mime work. So he would have had to go big to go small. But not so big that it was big.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
It's really well, and it's genuinely affecting because it's like that little slump of the shoulders says it all. He's taken on the weight of 3 trilogies worth of Star Wars.
Absolutely. Well, and they're gonna shut him down and boot him up with his red eyes.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get some of the information they need, but now they gotta save Chewie.
Uh-huh.
Because Rey feels him. Tramp.
She is. She's fundamentally unreliable.
But it feels to me as though this is a good place for us to cut our episode in half so that we can come back next week and just see if they can save our fine furry friend.
Does this mean we're halfway through the second act by your determination? Okay. I buy it. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. The second half of the second act is all on the ship.
The second half of the movie's all on the ship. What ship?
The Star Destroyer. Or whatever they're calling those now. As they're saving Chewie.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Got second half of the second act, you mean?
Yeah.
Not the rest of the movie.
No, I said second half of the second act.
Oh, no, you said second half of the movie.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know who's gaslighting who here, but...
We'll go back. I'll be editing this soon.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can mind hump me with your editing.
I can
You can just
switch
just
shit
be
around.
Like Radioactive Man and Fallout Boy. Just cut in a clip of me going, yes.
Second half of the second act.
Mr. Black. Yeah. No, I think this is the perfect time to stop, yes.
All right, then. Well, there you have it, folks. The first half of The Rise of Skywalker. Stopping in the first part of the second act.
We think. To the best of our determination.
So you're going to have to let us know. What do you think of the first half of this movie?
It's a very specific question when you put it like that.
You know what to do to let us know. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. Do not find us on X, but send whatever you send on Threads.
Open a thread.
Open a thread. There you go. Thread sounds loose and...
Oh, I said that with confidence, but I don't know if that's what they say. It just seems to be the idea is of like it's a thread, like it's a conversation. You start a conversation on Threads.
All right.
That sounds
then
right.
thread makes sense in that sense.
Yeah, it's not like fraying fabric.
Yeah, exactly. I thought of it as fraying, and I don't think that. Otherwise,
No,
they should have called it patch.
It's more in the vein of keeping a thread going, I think.
Okay.
Which no one seems to do for my posts, but still.
Oh, so sorry.
No, they just put a heart and go, yeah, that seems to be
Well,
the
that's
thing
enough
that
these
happened.
days. Heart.
Sure, yeah.
I've let you know what I thought.
Yeah. I don't hate you. By the way, head over to YouTube. I would like everyone listening to read the comment that we got from a possibly made up user about our Karate Kid for Christmas Patreon sneak peek episode there. I mean, think second opinions on how did this get made, and then add 3 more layers of non sequiturs.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's
well,
not complimentary.
Perfect.
It begins, you guys have no taste in movies.
Are they talking about the 2010?
Yes.
Oh.
Amongst other acts. that they have to
Random
grab.
bits.
Again, to the point where you're like, I don't even know if this is a real person or a AI generated set
Babble?
of complaints. Yeah, could be.
All right. Well, do all of that or send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com.
Send your gibberish directly.
For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next time, we're finishing The Rise of Skywalker. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
I don't believe you believe that.
More
Gaslighting within gaslighting.
More quality dialogue.
More mind humps.
What these movies need? More mind hump.
Yeah, it's not about belief, it's about cold hard facts.
All right, we'll be back, everybody.